Let's travel back in time for a moment, about 2,500 years ago. Picture this. A single idea is about to be spoken for the very first time. And it's an idea so powerful, it's going to literally change how humanity thinks about, well, everything. The person speaking has just had this incredible breakthrough, and he's finally ready to share it. This is the story of how he did it, a sermon that set a great wheel in motion. So just think about that for a second. After achieving what he called a supreme right self-awakening, what's the very first thing the Buddha decides to teach? I mean, out of everything he now understands, what's so critical that it absolutely has to come first? Let's dive in and find out. To really get this, we've got to set the scene. We need to go back to the exact time and place where it all kicked off. And lucky for us, the original text, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, tells us exactly where we're headed. So here we are. We're in this peaceful deer park, Paṭisambhidākathā, right near the ancient city of Varanasi. Now, you might be picturing a huge crowd, right? But no, his audience is tiny. It's just 5 ascetics. And get this, these were his former spiritual buddies who had actually bailed on him earlier, thinking he'd given up the quest. And it's to them he decides to deliver this game-changing teaching. Okay, so what does he open with? It's not some super complicated philosophical maze. He starts with something incredibly practical. He basically says, before I show you the path to take, let me show you the 2 roads you absolutely have to avoid. And he is crystal clear about these 2 dead ends. On one side, you've got Kamasuka Halakanu Yoga, which is pretty much a life dedicated to chasing sensual pleasures, total indulgence. The Buddha calls this path low, worldly, and in the end, totally useless. Then, on the other extreme, you have attha yoga. This is the path of extreme self-denial and self-punishment. And he calls this one just plain painful and, again, useless. So the big takeaway here is that both extremes, the party life and the life of harsh self-denial, are seen as complete non-starters. So if both of those paths are off the table, what are you supposed to do? This is where the Buddha drops his core concept, the Majjhima Paṭibhāna, what we know as the middle way. And it's so important to get this. It's not just some bland compromise between the two. Not at all. It's a completely different path. It's a path that he says actually creates vision and knowledge and leads you straight to peace, awakening, and the ultimate goal, nibbana. So once he's established this new path, this middle way, he then lays out the very framework of his teaching. This is the absolute heart of the sermon, and it's structured as 4 simple but unbelievably profound truths. Honestly, the best way to get your head around these 4 truths is to think of them like a doctor's visit. It's a really clear, logical process. First, you identify the symptom, then you find the cause, then you confirm that a cure exists, and finally, you get the prescription. So let's walk through that diagnosis. Step 1, the symptom, is dukkham. This is the idea that life involves a basic level of stress, suffering, and just unsatisfactoriness. Okay, so what's causing it? Step 2, the cause, is samudayam. This suffering isn't just random bad luck, it comes from tanha, this deep-seated craving, this thirst for things to be different than they are. All right, now for the important part, the prognosis, nirodham. And this is the good news. There can be an end to this suffering. It's not a permanent condition. So how do you do it? What's the medicine? That's step 4, the prescription, magga. The way to end the suffering is to follow the Noble Eightfold Path. That's the treatment plan. Now, as the Buddha finished laying all this out, something truly remarkable happened. This teaching didn't just land in the ears of those 5 men. No, it sent ripples out through the entire cosmos. At that very moment, the text tells us that one of the listeners, a guy named Kondanya, has this sudden flash of insight. He just gets it. He has this aha moment where he understands this fundamental truth. Anything that has a beginning must also have an end. And the Buddha saw it on his face and just exclaimed, Kondanya knows, Kondanya knows. He got it. And then, it's like the universe itself threw a party. The earth spirits, the devas, shouted out the news that this unstoppable wheel of Dhamma had been set in motion. And then the beings in the next heaven heard them and shouted it out. And then the next, and the next, like a wave going all the way up to the highest realms imaginable. The whole world system is said to have shaken and trembled, and this brilliant, immeasurable light just appeared everywhere, outshining everything. I mean, what a moment. That huge cosmic celebration, it wasn't just for one person's insight. It was a sign that this teaching, this quiet sermon in a deer park, was the start of a legacy that would echo for thousands of years. This whole event is called the Dhammacakkappavattana.
It literally translates to the setting in motion of the wheel of the Dhamma. And that image of a wheel is so crucial. A wheel, once you give it a good push, just keeps on turning. This teaching was never meant to be a historical artifact stuck in a museum. It was a dynamic, living truth, set in motion for anyone, anywhere to discover for themselves.
Which, brings it all right back to us. The Buddha's very first teaching wasn't about some abstract belief system. It was a practical guide for navigating the extremes in our own lives. It asks us to look closely at how we live and to find that skillful balance between indulgence and self-denial. And so that wheel, which is still turning, leaves us with a question to reflect on. In your own life, how do you find the middle way?